I would now like to invite Minister, His Excellency Minister Aufi from Oman to address us and to give his keynote speech. Welcome on stage, Minister of the Resilience country.
I don't know whether I should start or the music stops. So yesterday, I had the privilege of driving to The Hague and come back. And on my way, I've seen many wind turbines. I was extremely pleased to see that they are running, they were moving, they were generating electricity, and they are not rusting. A month ago, I was in China, and I visited Beijing and Shanghai. Between the two cities, there are at least 20 million vehicles because of quota. And at least 25% are taxis. And every single one of them is an EV taxi. What I've seen happening there and what I know is happening in Oman. Because from now until 2030, 2033, I probably need to add at least 20 gigawatt of green electricity. This is only counting the grid requirement, wind and solar. Now, if you take that and put it against what we have today in terms of total electricity generation, we probably have a capacity of around 11 gigawatt. I need to double what we've done over the last 50 years in about 3 to 5 years. That is a huge undertaking, not to mention, of course, the hydrogen requirement, which is a completely different ballgame. But let me start by stating some probably fact-grounding information. I know there's a lot of exciting stuff happening, and we're extremely pleased to hear that and see it. But climate change is a reality. It is no longer a scientific debate. We are not debating it anymore. We feel it here in Europe. I think you had a dry summer. Back home, we get cyclones every year, bigger in magnitude and more devastating. We've seen what happened in LA. We see what happens in the Far East. Mother Earth is sending messages to us that unless you act, it's going to be a completely different planet. That's number one. Number two, 10 years ago, probably every single country represented in this room were in Paris. And we did a lot of debate, a lot of haggling, a lot of negotiation, and we finally celebrated a moment where we started hugging each other and signed an agreement that we pledge to reduce the carbon emission in this planet. 10 years down the road, we are emitting more CO2 than we did back in 2015. We are going in the wrong direction. But, and I have to say this not because I'm here in Europe, we look up to Europe as a strong leading part of the world when it comes to climate change and decarbonizing industries. We are seriously looking at the standards that are set here because I think many parts of the world are doing the same. Not only in Oman, but also in the Far East. Every time we talk to them, they say, let's see what comes out of Europe. Because they will set the pace, they will set the rules, and we will follow. We've designed our system back home to comply 150% with what we think Europe will probably ask for. And we added an additional 10-15% just in case Europe decides to change the ball game again. So we truly believe that Europe is going to be leading in this area. But that in itself is good and bad. And I will come back again to why it's bad and what we probably need to do. to make it better. Let me first talk about what's happening in Oman. So 3 years ago, we got a royal decree that sanctioned over 65,000 square kilometers for renewable energy generation, of which at least 50,000 square kilometers is prime land for predominantly hydrogen production. And we did it for two reasons. Number one, we strongly believe that we have to take an action on combating the climate change. Truly believe in it. Although we are a nation that is dependent on oil and gas, but we're doing everything we can to clean that act up. And because we also believe that oil and gas is not a renewable source of energy. There will come a time when either we run out of it or the world doesn't need it anymore. And in order to sustain our industry and what we have created to date, we need a cleaner energy. And now is the time to start doing it because we still have the fund flowing through the traditional energy source. So we're looking into another 10, 15 years, we probably need to build something that will replace slowly the existing energy. So 50,000 square kilometers are earmarked for hydrogen. We also created Hydrom. Hydrom is not a producer. Hydrom is an orchestrator of all the hydrogen economy works, from land auctioning to signing agreements to follow-up to negotiating the deals and so on. They don't produce a single molecules, but they, of course, oversee all the developers, and some of us are here. Some of them are here. We also launched the first auction and the second auction. And between the two, we were able to secure up to $50 billion of committed projects. Each one of them promises to produce at least 150,000 tons of green hydrogen. And we are undergoing at the moment the third auction. We took all the learnings from the first and second auction. We think the world is probably not ready for the big scales that we were planning for. We reduced it a little bit, and we allow the existing ones to probably phase the development instead of doing it in a single phase. So instead of supplying 150, you can probably go for a 50 and then another 50 and so on as the market evolves and the demand increases. We also named 4 national champions at the time, and I will come to the 5th one in a minute, in order to orchestrate the entire hydrogen supply chain. The first one is OQ Gas Network, which have a track record of supplying and transporting gas in the country as the national champion for transporting hydrogen. Basically saying to the developers, you concentrate on what you do best, produce the renewable energy and the hydrogen. We will take the molecules from your doorstep and will deliver it to the port, where you can either convert it into derivatives or use it if there is a market at the port that consumes it. We also named OETC, Oman Electricity Transmission Company, as the national champion for transmitting the green electrons, because we need green electrons at the port, both for the desalination of the water and for the downstream industries, be it ammonia or liquid hydrogen and so on. And we named Nama Water, which is the traditional water supply company, to become the source of the green, clean water, desalinated water, so that all the hydrogen producers will receive the water at their doorstep, and then they can, of course, do the final purification and produce the hydrogen. And we will take the reject back again from them and probably use it for something else. Later on, of course, we thought this is probably not good enough because, as we have learned from many parts of the world, one of the biggest challenges is regulations, permitting, challenges with different government entities all trying to do their own good things, but they do it in isolation. So we kicked off the ecosystem readiness event or workshop or lab, as we call it back home, which involved practically all the government players, most if not all the developers, the private sector, the academia, so that we can understand the entire ecosystem. Who is playing in this game, and what permit are they issuing, and for what purpose, and what do we need to do to ease it? Of course, many initiatives were identified at in that workshop, 26 of them in number, but there were two that came out very clearly. The first one is we need a single permit, which means as a developer signs the agreement with Rådström, they register in the business platform and immediately get one permit that allows them to do everything. Of course, in that permit, it spells out exactly what you need to do in order to satisfy the environmental requirement and the social requirement and so on. But it's a single permit. You got it. You don't need to go and knock on anybody else's door. That was a major milestone because we've never done it before. And we know what it takes to get permits. And I think here in Europe, you know that one extremely well. Then we said, in order to move equipment from wherever they're sent from, all the way to the production site, it's going to go through a lot of processes. Ports, export, receiving port, storage yard, transportation, final storage yard, and so on. That is extremely complicated. If we are to build this hydrogen economy at the speed that we were planning for, we need to do something in order to simplify this entire process. And therefore, Asyad Shipping was named as the national champion for all the logistical requirements that a developer will need. You simply need to register with them. They will truck your shipment from port of dispatch all the way until it arrives at the production site. They will not construct it, that's your business, but they will at least have it at the storage yard, at the construction site. That, of course, takes care of the entire logistic nightmare that many developers will face. And so far, they have been doing a great work in terms of surveying all the roads, probably building new ones, because if you are to transport 92 meters of a wind blade, you probably need to look into the roads. And of course, how long would it take to transport one single turbine, 3 blades, and all the other ancillary equipment? And I'm really happy, last week we were discussing how far they've got, and they were able to say we can actually go down from 4 convoys to a single convoy. Yes, it's long, and we need to put all the bells and whistles around it, but we were able to do it, which means we can transport an entire turbine with all the blades and all the ancillary equipment in one single shipment. That cut down the cost. Everything we're doing, and I talked about so far, is really trying to bring the cost of producing hydrogen to the bare minimum. And we are getting close to touching the $3 per kilogram produced at home. I know the aspiration is to get it to much lower than that, but we're going there slowly. So a lot of that work has happened. Of course, we're not doing everything within Oman itself. We're also reaching out to a lot of partners here in Europe, in the Far East, and particularly in Europe. I was extremely happy that early this year, in April, we signed the joint development agreement with the Port of Amsterdam and some of our German partners as well. So 11 companies signed that joint development agreement with one aim. Can we transport liquid hydrogen from Port of Dokkum in Oman all the way to the Port of Amsterdam in the Netherlands? And the reason why we selected Port of Amsterdam is because they said very clearly, we cannot accept your ammonia. It got to be hydrogen. Now, of course, with Rotterdam, we're working on ammonia, and with Antwerp, we're working with ammonia, and we're working with all of them. But that particular one is extremely exciting in my mind, because if we can get liquid hydrogen transported, and we are working on that very quickly. In fact, this afternoon we'll probably talk about what do we need to do to get the FID going of that project. Then I think we probably crack the code of getting hydrogen from point of origin to point of destination, which is what we really need to do in order to combat all the challenges that I said earlier. We also, of course, were signatory, we did this last year, to the Belgian Hydrogen Alliance, because we want to understand what's happening and be part of the solution that can be crafted, or at least give ideas from a supplier side what needs to be done. But that's only one part of the puzzle. Only one side of it is supply. The other side, which has to be of equal size, is the demand side. I cannot supply anything. We cannot produce a single molecule of hydrogen if there is no buyer, if there is no off-taker. And in order to generate off-takers, and in order to incentivize the buyers, and I don't mean by incentivizing give them money, because I don't believe in giving money to anybody, is actually three things that I ask of Europe. We've seen the challenges, and we've seen in terms of numbers, you've just showed us, Europe is probably the lowest of the three regions that you showed. And here is what we think from our side. And please allow me, it may sound a little bit sort of arrogant to say it, but we've been struggling seriously with the changing standards. One day it's green, and it has to be greener than any other green that we've seen. It has to be, you have to produce the electrons at the same location where the molecules are produced, and it cannot touch any gray, and it has to be accounted for in all sorts of forms. And we're building toward that. I have no problem. Just tell us what you want. And then later on, it starts to ease a little bit and say, well, a bit of blue doesn't really harm anybody. And it's okay if the electrons are produced in one part of the country and consumed in another part of the country. And it's okay if the water is not 100% green, but it can also be using gray electricity or traditional electricity. That caused a lot of confusion for us, because it probably will make me uncompetitive. I'm building a system that tries to meet some of the stringent regulations, and then I'm sending it to a market where the standards are changing. It makes taking FID on any project a little bit more challenging, because we're just saying, like we always said about the British weather, if you don't like what you see, wait for 5 minutes, it will change. So our developers are saying, hold on a second, I think Europe is going to change. So let's have a single standard, stringent, relaxed, whatever you want to call it, and just hold it for a few years so that we can get projects executed and mobilized, and we get developers. And we get developers to take FID because they all want to. Now, of course, we're doing our part to try and sort of ease that pain by creating our own industry that will consume hydrogen. You can imagine how limited that is, because I don't really consume a lot of hydrogen, even if I want to. But we're doing that at least to get some of the projects moving and take FID. The second one is really mandating some sort of minimum offtake, particularly to the big industries. Unless you have mandated requirements, they will all be sitting at the fence, watching what does the regulator want. How hard is going to be the hammer? Or is it going to be words and then relaxed and then negotiated and then probably completely forget about it? They need to see very clear messaging from the policymakers. This is what we want, and we want it by this date. And you have challenges called price, and you have challenges called transport. You go and fix it, and we can help you fix it. But if I don't know what I'm fixing, it's going to be extremely challenging for me. I feel sometimes as though I need to wrap up. I feel sometimes I'm probably walking with a blind eye. I don't know which direction I should be going, and someone is telling me wrong direction, right direction, wrong direction. So we need that. Last one is probably an idea which is probably going to help us and maybe helping the industry as well, is to create a single aggregator of hydrogen. Basically what it means, instead of us walking around with our bag, negotiating and talking to every single potential buyer, and I don't know who they are and what mandates they have and how much volume they need to take and so on, a single European aggregator, or maybe multiple, that actually take the pain of talking to the consumers directly. We should be selling to that aggregator. We know how much they need. We know they have the backing of Europe. It will make our bankability of our projects much easier. And if we can create that single aggregator like we did with LNG, it will make a lot of sense for us, and it will make our life much, much easier, and we can move faster. They know how to maneuver the local market. They know who the buyers are. They know how much they need. And I have a single off-taker that will probably be able to commit to some credible volumes. So to wrap up, I have to say that the supply is ready. The demand needs to be steady. We are ready to start working, and we're actually doing that already from our side, but unless we have the demand credible, knocking on our door and really committing to offtake, it will be very difficult for us to do anything on our own. So we're looking at this community to probably advocate these kind of messages. We need to make sure that the standards are set clear and fixed. We need to make sure there is a minimum commitment of offtake mandated, and we need to make sure, if possible, there is a single buyer who knows who the suppliers are, negotiate with all the suppliers to bring the cost down, understand all the challenges and address them, and also maneuver the web of the consumers because they know them better. And we stand ready to support, and we stand ready to partner with whoever that off-taker is. And with this, I'd like to thank you for making Oman your official partner country for this year. Myself and my team, of course, are honored to be with you here today, and I look forward to all the discussion that we will have throughout the next few days. Thank you all very much.
I think that was a clear signal coming here from Oman, and now we understand also why your country is a reliable, safe and economic destination for hydrogen. Thanks very much indeed. Thanks very much for the ideas, for the clarity, and for the idea of a single aggregator. In order to understand better where we are in Europe, in a change of the program, I would now like to announce the upcoming presidency of the European Union. We have here today with us the Minister for Energy, Commerce and Industry of the Republic of Cyprus, Giorgios Papanastasiou, and we agreed to pronounce our names in the Greek way. And you come from the council meeting, and unfortunately you need to go somehow back, so that's why we changed the program. But you discussed all that in the Council of Ministers, and for those of you, the Council of Ministers is basically the second chamber of our system. So we have the European Parliament, and we have the more powerful sometimes ministers, and I welcome here on stage Giorgios Papanastasiou, Minister from Cyprus. Welcome.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the invitation. I thank the organizers for inviting me to this prestigious event of the European Hydrogen Week. Indeed, I'm coming from yesterday's council, which is the COMPET Council, Competitiveness. And Indeed, we discussed some of the things that my colleague, the Minister of Energy from Oman, mentioned, and I will try to do my best to deliver some comfort messages, Minister. The subject of conversation yesterday and the dialogues later on between ministers, they were based on one thing: single market, European market, and simplification. Because you mentioned a few things on a moving goalpost, this is how I visioned it as you were describing it, a moving goalpost in Europe, and you in Oman cannot understand what to prepare in order to meet the requirements of the demand. Indeed, it's one of the things that we discussed yesterday, and we need to simplify things. We need to minimize regulation as much as possible to the degree that the European Union feels comfortable, but at the same time we need to understand that we are not alone in this world. We have competitors, we have the US, and we have Asia, China. You understand that Europe needs to decide where it wants to go. And indeed, simplification is one of the main, let's say, targets and one of our main objectives that we will take up in the presidency, upcoming presidency on the 1st of January. On the other hand, whilst you were talking, my colleague, Minister, I thought of checking what you were saying. And in fact, I asked the AI what Oman is doing on hydrogen. And I can confirm all what you mentioned. But I will put it forward as bullet points, which it says 1 million tons per year of green hydrogen, not green, neither greener, green, by 2030, scaling up to 3.75 million by 2040, and 8.5 million by 2050. Plant electrolyzer capacity of 30 gigawatts by 2040. So far, AI is correct, huh? Good. And net zero target by 20. Good, you are good. It's part of Oman's broader energy transition strategy. So well done, Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank Hydrogen Europe and especially its CEO, Giorgios Hadjimarkakis, for inviting me to this event and giving me the opportunity to express my thoughts on the future of the hydrogen sector. Today we stand at a pivotal moment in the global energy transition. The urgency of climate change, the volatility of fossil fuel markets, and the need for energy security, and converging into a single, undeniable truth. We must transform the way we produce, store, and use energy. The goal of a climate-neutral Europe by 2050 is not just an aspiration, it is a necessity for the future of generations to come. Hydrogen, particularly renewable hydrogen, is no longer a distant vision. It is considered as one of Europe's main pillars for decarbonization, a driver of industrial competitiveness and a future geopolitical asset. The European Union has recognized this through its 2020 hydrogen strategy, the Repower EU plan, the important projects of common European interest, the creation of the European Hydrogen Bank, and the establishment of the EU network of transmission network operators for hydrogen. Yet the path we choose in the coming years will determine whether hydrogen becomes a cornerstone of global decarbonization and economic renewal or a missed opportunity. The way ahead is clear, but it demands speed, scale, private investments, and coordination. In this context, I would like to emphasize 3 important points. The first is the geopolitical dimension. Countries rich in renewable resources, from North Africa's solar potential to the North Sea's offshore wind, are positioning themselves as future hydrogen exporters. Renewable and low-carbon hydrogen alongside renewable fuels will reshape global energy trade. Countries with abundant renewables or cheap low-carbon electricity will become exporters. Energy importing nations will form strategic partnerships, while others will seek energy independence, giving rise to new energy alliances and promoting economic development. This new energy geopolitical landscape will create opportunities for growth, but also risks, as global competition for market dominance intensifies. Europe must therefore act decisively to build strong domestic capacity and to forge fair, sustainable, and reliable hydrogen partnerships abroad. The second point is the economic dimension. Hydrogen can create growth opportunities. By 2050, the hydrogen economy could bring millions of jobs across engineering, manufacturing, infrastructure, and services, and generate hundreds of billions of euro in annual revenue. Given the fact that our discussions within the EU also concern enhancing our competitiveness and reviving our industries, hydrogen presents opportunities for industrial renewal, leveraging local manufacturing, and building new export industries. Hydrogen is also a domain for potential cooperation. Joint projects, financing frameworks, coordinated regulations, and shared infrastructure can multiply the benefits. The third point I wish to touch upon is the challenges we face moving forward. We must acknowledge that the road ahead is not without obstacles. Scaling up renewable hydrogen production requires unprecedented investment, robust infrastructure, and coordinated policy frameworks across the member states. Technological hurdles, high initial costs, and the need for skilled workforces could slow our progress if left unaddressed. Similarly, global competition for resources and supply chains will test our resilience and demand that Europe acts with both speed and strategic foresight. A persistent challenge will be cost competitiveness between renewable hydrogen and its fossil fuel alternatives, scaling up electrolysis, renewable power, and European manufacturing is essential to bring costs down and to strengthen our strategic autonomy. Equally important is strengthening cooperation between research, innovation, and industry. Knowledge transfer and skills development are critical to unlocking hydrogen's full potential. At the same time, Europe must continue to provide affordable energy to its citizens, SMEs, and industries. Hydrogen can play a key role here by absorbing excess renewable energy, balancing electricity grids, and decarbonizing energy-intensive sectors, thus ultimately helping to lower system costs and energy prices. However, alignment is crucial. Investment timelines, regulatory adaptation, and infrastructure development must align to provide certainty and stability for investors and stakeholders. We must also address regulatory fragmentation and the lack of global standards. Common definitions, certification, and trade standards are essential to enable cross-border trade and investments in the sector. Finally, financing and risk. Large-scale hydrogen projects are capital-intensive and face market, regulatory, and offtake risks. Private capital requires predictable policy frameworks and de-risking instruments. These challenges are real, but they are not insurmountable, provided we match our ambition with decisive action and unwavering collaboration. Cyprus' National Hydrogen Strategy, approved last June, focuses on the development and use of hydrogen mainly in transport. We have identified that the gradual introduction of hydrogen in the heavy transport sector is the optimal and most cost-effective way to integrate hydrogen into our energy mix. This choice is justified by the need to ensure that any future commitment is compatible with our national specificities, realistic, feasible, and tailored to Cyprus' needs. For example, water scarcity in Cyprus constitutes a critical factor, as the production of green hydrogen through electrolysis requires significant amounts of clean water, specifically 9 to 15 kilograms for every kilogram of hydrogen. Of course, we must not be discouraged. Private initiatives to promote innovative technologies through pilot programs will continue so that we do not fall behind international technological developments. Ladies and gentlemen, the promise of hydrogen is more than a technological opportunity. It is a defining choice for Europe's future. By acting together in confronting the challenges I have mentioned head-on, governments, industry, finance, and civil society, we can build a hydrogen economy that enhances energy security, spurs sustainable growth, and advances our shared climate goals. We can secure not only our energy independence, but also our leadership in the global transition to a sustainable economy. The time to act is now, and together we can ensure that hydrogen becomes the cornerstone of a cleaner, stronger, and more resilient Europe. Thank you for listening to me.
Thanks very much, dear Minister. And we saw Cyprus has an issue with curtailment, like the next presidency after you, Ireland. So it's two islands, similar issues, so we might expect some initiatives during that 2 years to bring hydrogen also more into the system of energy resilience. It's with big pleasure that I would now like to welcome Shri Santosh Kumar Sarangi, the Secretary of the Ministry for New and Renewable Energy from India, our partner country last year. Welcome here on stage, and good to see that India is still on the hydrogen track.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be back here as part of European Hydrogen Week, and it was a proud privilege for us to be partner last year, and we are happy to see the Omanese delegation here partnering in the current year. As far as India is concerned, all of you are familiar that in 2023 we announced the launch of National Green Hydrogen Mission. And this has very ambitious targets set for itself with 5 million tons of green hydrogen production by 2030. And this particular mission for us is not merely a declaration of policy framework, but it's a bold declaration of intent. For us, it is also a way of committing to reimagining our green transition and achieving our net zero transition by 2070. Through a variety of measures, India has been trying to promote green hydrogen at a very big scale. It's a mix of policy interventions, a mix of incentives, infrastructure creation to support green hydrogen manufacturing and along with it, its derivatives as well. Then domestic demand creation, ways of supporting financing in this particular sector, and standards and certification measures. As part of our policy initiative, we have come up with this mission, and there are steering committees which are functioning among different departments and which is headed by the Cabinet Secretary, which reviews the progress of green hydrogen mission from time to time. In addition, there are a lot of incentives for manufacturing, supporting manufacturing in India. So in terms of electrolyzer manufacturing, we had created planned a target of about 3 gigawatt of electrolyzer manufacturing. But when we did the bidding, we discovered about 16 gigawatt of electrolyzer manufacturing commitment by our players. Similarly, through a variety of incentives, we have now taken a commitment of 862,000 tons of green hydrogen manufacturing in India. In addition, through a variety of demand creation measures, our refineries and our fertilizer plants have committed for offtake of green hydrogen as well as green ammonia. The price discovery has been done through a very transparent bidding mechanism, and we have discovered the lowest ever price for green ammonia until now in the entire world. And between this, we think we have already taken a commitment of about 1 million tons of offtake in the domestic market itself. And given the kind of population that we have, the kind of growth rate that we have seen in the last couple of years, and for the last 3 to 4 years, India has been the fastest growing economy in the world. And to that extent, to continue that momentum, I think that India can create a huge domestic demand for itself as far as the green hydrogen is concerned. And keeping that in view, we are going ahead with our measures, both on the policy front, infrastructure front, as well as in creating demand in the domestic market. We have also focused on standards and certification measures, and we have notified the standards for green hydrogen in 2023 by aligning it with global standards. But I would agree with the Omani's minister who pointed out that there has to be a certain degree of certainty when it comes to policies as well as in terms of standards which define green hydrogen. So there has to be common standard for green hydrogen which is understood equally by all countries in the world. And to that extent, India is looking forward to Europe to play that lead role, and we will be more than happy to collaborate in this particular initiative. Similarly, in April of this year, we came up with our certification measures to ensure that the green hydrogen which is produced in our country has adequate traceability and is fully complying with the requirements of green hydrogen production. Going forward, we would look forward to a lot of collaboration between countries to take forward our initiative, and we strongly believe that we should be powering our industries and our cities with the new molecule of hope, which is green hydrogen. And this is the way for clean, green and transformative way to look at the future of mankind. Thank you all for giving us this opportunity.
New molecule of hope. Very, very interesting way to put it. And there are people on this globe that fill us with hope because they are charismatic. They do things that you don't expect. And we have such a person among us, Bertrand Piccard, who is the gentleman well known for going around the world on solar. And he is preparing his third round the world journey. I would like to welcome with all of you here, Bertrand Piccard, founder of Solar Impulse.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Imagine a suborbital shuttle with 100 passengers taking off with liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, exactly like the Ariane rocket. It would carry the 100 passengers to roughly 65, 70 miles altitude. Then it would cut the engine and fly parabolic, suborbital, landing in Sydney 2 hours after the takeoff from Brussels. You will tell me it's impossible. I would ask you, why is it impossible? And you might tell me, because nobody has done it yet. And this is exactly the type of spirit that we have to change. We need to show what is possible and not what is impossible. Of course, for the industry or for governments, it might be crazy to invest already today to transport 100 passengers in 2 hours to Sydney with liquid hydrogen. But for pioneers, for explorers, it's exactly the field that we have to start exploring. Of course, we have to start maybe a little bit more humble, not straight away commercial. And this is the goal of Climate Impulse. And I will show you what it looks like.
What if we could change the world? What if impossible today could be possible tomorrow?
The time for action is now. The time to implement solutions is here. Meet Bertrand Piccard and Raphael Dinelli, pioneers of sustainable innovation. Together with their team, they are embarking on an extraordinary mission.
Flying around the world in a hydrogen-powered airplane with zero emissions. Now they're building their way to the future.
This is Climate Impulse. More than a flight, it is an exploration feat set to revolutionize aviation.
To prove that decarbonizing the skies is not just a dream, but a reality. If they can make it happen up there,
we can make it happen everywhere.
Be the change.
Be the impulse.
Aviation is a fantastic field for innovation. Can you imagine that between 1903 and 1969, we went from a wood and cloth airplane flying 200 meters to the landing on the moon? This is why I choose aviation, to continue to be disruptive and show the example. This is why I wanted to fly around the world in a solar-powered airplane, making, by the way, the first stopover in Oman. Welcome by your government, Excellency. Flying around the world in a solar-powered airplane. I went to meet the airplane constructors and asking them, can you make that plane for me? And they all answered, of course not. Because they told me you cannot have enough energy given by the sun to have an airplane flying day and night. So what did we do? Instead of increasing the power of the sun, we decreased the consumption of the plane and made the plane energy efficient with a huge wingspan, extremely light materials, slow speed, and it worked. It worked, but it worked with 16 stopovers. It was decarbonized, but we can do better. And what was for me a real illumination, technology-wise, was to see the gap between what exists in the mind of the people and exists in the reality of technology. In the mind of the people, we still have to burn fuel. We still have to consume a lot, to produce a lot. And here is the situation here with climate change and depletion of natural resources and biodiversity and all the problems we know. But this airplane here is not using futuristic technologies. It was using technologies that exist today and allowed me to fly with no fuel, no noise, no pollution. So it shows that the technology is far ahead of what people believe. And this is why now I believe that we can achieve much more than that. And we can achieve, as an example of what can be done with liquid hydrogen, what I like to call the ultimate flight, the flight that you cannot improve. It's around the world, it's non-stop, and it's zero polluting emissions. Can you do it with something else than hydrogen? I don't think so. I think that now this is really the fuel that we have to use. So the plane is under construction. This is the way it looks like. Basically, it is built around the two major size hydrogen fuel tanks. We have 1.5 tons of liquid hydrogen. That makes 11 cubic meters because hydrogen is very light, but it takes a lot of volume. And we have, as a big challenge, to keep it at minus 253 degrees for 9 days. The plane has to cover 40,000 kilometers at 180 kilometers per hour. That makes 9 days. We'll fly at 10,000 feet. And the challenge is not so much to build the plane. The challenge is to build the hydrogen fuel tanks that will keep the hydrogen liquid for 9 days, giving a boil-off that will be exactly the consumption of the fuel cell. We have started the construction because I would not dare to come here and say, oh, we're going to fly around the world non-stop, zero emission. No, it's not a project, it's a program. We have built around half of the airplane yet. And at the contrary from Solar Impulse, where the airplane industry was laughing, this time we have support. It's an industry project. We have Airbus, who made the aerodynamic and the feasibility study. We have Ariane Group, who is helping us for the hydrogen fuel tanks. We have ScienceCo, who is providing all the light materials, the adhesives, the composite materials to make it happen. We have the OCP, Office Chérifien des Phosphates, the biggest fertilizer industry that is located in Morocco, who wants to diversify in hydrogen and renewables and supporting us for the project. So we see that there are pioneers. There are people who really believe in it. But of course, we have to prove that it will work. And here is, I believe, the major criticism that can be addressed to the project. Well, you might have the airplane, you might have a fueling system with liquid hydrogen, but you cannot make it at large scale. Airplanes don't fly with hydrogen. You don't have the supply with hydrogen. You don't have the production with hydrogen. It's too expensive. You have to change everything. It's an industry that doesn't exist yet. Short memory for the people who think like this. Just go back 30 years, 40 years. The first mobile phone was a suitcase, and it costed $15,000. And people said it has no future, it's too expensive. And today we all have one in the pocket for $100. Remember the photovoltaic. 25 years ago, it was 40 times more expensive than it is today. Today, photovoltaic is the cheapest source of energy in the world. Remember when IBM was saying in 1943, there is a market for 4 computers in the world. Now we all have a couple of them at home. All the people who believe that hydrogen will always remain too expensive have not understood what means the critical mass. The critical mass is when you have, at the same time, enough demand and enough production to drop the price. The price will fall down. And it's also a big mistake to compare the cost of a kilo of hydrogen with the cost of a kilo of gasoline, because hydrogen is giving 10 times more energy than gasoline. So you see that there is a huge future. You see that there are enough people who believe in it. But when you see that Airbus has postponed his own hydrogen airplane project, who was supposed to happen in 2035, why did they postpone it? Not because the airplane would not be ready, but because the supply would not be ready, because the industry would not be ready. The industry, that's you. This is why it's so important to wake up everybody and to say now we need to start not by making a plan where the entire world will work immediately and together with hydrogen, but where there will be projects everywhere, direct projects, local ecosystems, where we can have an airplane on an aero club flying with hydrogen. We have heavy trucks, we have trains, we have boats, we have countries. All this will be the pieces of a puzzle. And we all have to be a part of the puzzle. So if we chose as a motto, one flight, one world, 0 emissions, it can be also one industry, one country, one company, and it will be also in one world and 0 emissions. We have to be pioneers. And I know that the people who say it's impossible should not disturb the one who are trying to make it happen. So let's make it happen together and prove that once again, the pioneering spirit can win over the skepticism. That the future is just what we invent, not what is in the past. We're not the victims of the past, you know. We're the actors of the future. And there are not so many moments where we can be really the pioneers that invent another future. Hydrogen is an opportunity for that, and this is why we shouldn't miss it. So I'm not finishing my speech by saying thank you. I'm finishing my speech by saying, please, do it. We need this hydrogen for all our airplanes. Thank you.
Fantastic. What a fantastic speech. What a fantastic way of waking us up. The hydrogen sector was never sleeping, but we have some difficult years, and this gives us the impulse, not only the solar impulse, but the real impulse to see what is possible and to believe in this. What is possible in the air is possible everywhere, you said, dear Bertrand. I think it would be good to see what's happening on Earth, especially in trucks. And it's a pleasure and an honor for me to welcome Karin Rådström here. She is the CEO of Daimler Trucks. The truck as such you can see outside. I announced it already, we showed it already. And here is the lady that is responsible for these kind of projects, bringing basically the impossible into trucks. Welcome, Karin.
Thank you. So, really happy to be here today. I think it's a very important week, and I have to start by saying I'm very proud to be a European, and I'm very proud that Europe has set such ambitious net zero targets. And these net zero targets means that we as an industry also have quite ambitious targets when it comes to CO2 emissions. And maybe all of you are not following everything that's happening in the EU in the transport sector, so just to uplift you and give you some information, for us it means to reduce the CO2 emissions on everything we sell, trucks, heavy trucks and buses. From 2019 level, we have to reduce by 15% this year, 2025, by 43% in 2030, and by 65% in 2035. And for sure, there is a lot that we're working on when it comes to improving our conventional trucks. If you look at the truck that we have here today, standing outside, we've just done a major upgrade to the aerodynamics of the cab. And of course, we're constantly working to make our diesel engines more efficient and better when it comes to the CO2 emissions. But in order to reach, for sure, the minus 43 and the minus 65%, we also need to replace a lot of diesel trucks with zero-emission trucks. And here and now, we have started with battery electric trucks, and we start to see a little bit of market uptake. But at Daimler Truck, we are also convinced that in order to solve that challenge, we will need hydrogen trucks. And I want to talk about why. I would say there's three main reasons why we believe hydrogen will play a big role when it comes to heavy-duty transport. The first is the infrastructure. And actually, we see already today, in the first half of the year, around 2% of the registered trucks in Europe were electric, and the remaining 98% is diesel. And why is that? Well, we have the trucks available, they're coming down in cost, so actually even many of our customers start to see that they can run an electric truck in cost parity with a diesel truck. However, they are hesitant to take that step today because they are not sure where they're going to be able to charge the truck, neither in the depot nor along the highways. And the challenge is that it's, well, first of all, the permitting process could be easier, but also we see already with this very low volume, and I was trying to calculate when I was sitting here listening to some of the previous speakers, I would guess that we have something like 30,000 heavy electric trucks today on the roads in Europe, and already now we start to see the challenges with grid capacity. And if we're really serious about net zero, it means we need to decarbonize a fleet of 6 million trucks, which is the total number of trucks that we have in Europe today. So, I think all this, there is a lot of positive things going on. I met Commissioner Jørgensen some weeks back, and he was telling me about the grid package. However, we see that this is going to take a long time. And actually, this is where hydrogen comes in, because it's actually less expensive to, in parallel to doing all these grid improvements which we need, to build a hydrogen refueling network in Europe. Another reason why we believe in hydrogen is resilience, and this has to do with hydrogen or fuel cell trucks needing a lot less rare earth metals than battery electric trucks. This makes us then as Europeans less dependent on mines that are far beyond our controls, for instance, in Asia. But also there is a topic of resilience when it comes to dependency on technology. And actually, I know there's also initiatives now in Europe to build a battery industry, which is nice, but I honestly think it's too late. And if we do that, then we have to have a 20-year perspective. We are not going to catch up to China and some of the other Asian countries within the next 5 years. However, on hydrogen, we still have a chance. We have a joint venture in Daimler Truck together with Volvo. I saw some colleagues from Cellcentric here today, where we are designing and industrializing a fuel cell which will fit for heavy-duty trucks. And we see when we are benchmarking that we are very, very competitive. We still think we have the best fuel cell in the market. And we also have the engineering know-how and the background in hydrogen to be able to integrate that fuel cell into the truck. And we can industrialize this in Europe. However, it takes some decision-making. Of course, we also have customer benefits. We see that for customers who have heavy payloads, who have to travel very long distances, there are significant advantages of a hydrogen-powered fuel cell truck compared to an electric truck, because you carry less batteries, so you can put more payload on. And of course, a battery electric truck, you might get a range on one charge of something like 700 kilometers, let's say, if we have some technology development in the next years. Right now it's like 600. But with the hydrogen truck, we were able to prove already 2 years ago with our Gen H2 truck that we can drive over 1,000 kilometers on one fueling. So there are also customer benefits, but I actually believe the other two are what will really drive this forward. Now, what else are we doing? I mentioned that we are, of course, working with fuel cell trucks, developing the technology and integrating the fuel cells into the vehicle. We are also engaging in the value chain to create a hydrogen on-prem in Europe to be able to charge. So as an example, we are discussing and working with Mastar and some other partners in the Middle East on production of green hydrogen. It was great to see the initiatives now happening in Oman, so looking forward to learning more in our meeting later today. We've also signed a memorandum of understanding with Kawasaki to look at how we can ship liquid hydrogen from regions where we have renewable energy at low cost, producing hydrogen and shipping that into Europe. Of course, we also work with many partners on the refueling and infrastructure side to start to build the corridors where we can fuel the trucks, and mention some of them here on the slide, like Linde, Air Products, Total Energies, and we're also part of H2 Mobility. So we have done a lot, but what's next? We need to go from doing pilot projects and IPSAI things to really taking a decisive step to scale. And I also have to say, I think we're really at a pivotal time. I'm ready to invest, let's say, to bring cell-centric really into industrial level, and to at the same time develop industrially the integration into the truck. I think we're talking probably high 100 millions or probably $1 billion. And I will tell you, I'm ready to do that, but we need to see also the other parts of this value chain coming together. And I think that's where we really need to come together in Europe now, and we also need the political support. Because always, when you're at this stage where you're just about to scale, but you're not at scale, the payoff of the projects is so long, and we need government to help us to de-risk some of the steps. And honestly, I would also love not to have to be involved in the whole hydrogen supply chain, but really come back to focusing on what I'm best at, which is developing really great vehicles that our customers can use to do the day-to-day transport. So to finish off, I also don't want to end with a thank you. I want to end with maybe two main topics. One is, let's decide as European that this is the technology that we're going to lead and win. And let's have political initiatives to really not do this small piloting and IPSAI here and IPSAI there, but to really decide decisively that we scale this across the value chain and come back to being a leader in technology. Thank you.
Tusen Tag. Thanks very much indeed. That was a clear impulse.
Yeah.
And you said we need to address to policymakers, and we now have a policymaker. We have Commissioner DUBRAVKA ŠUICA here. She will now come to stage and she will address basically the topics that need to be said. Mrs. Commissioner ŠUICA, you are the first commissioner for the Mediterranean, but also responsible for the broader Mediterranean, so the Gulf region and Oman. So it's an honor, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Voila.
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me here, dear ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I was listening a little bit to your speech earlier. It was a little bit more specific. This will be more general, but political will is here, I can tell you. So, as you know, for us, hydrogen is at the heart of European economic and strategic agenda for both renewable energies and decarbonization, and for the Union's external action. Under the REPower EU plan, which Commission launched in 2022, the European Union has set, as you know, very, very aspirational objective. We want to import 10 million tons of renewable hydrogen by 2030 from our global partners. Africa is expected to be a key partner region in producing renewable hydrogen. The precise share and volumes will obviously depend on the development of concrete projects, infrastructure, and partner country priorities. But I want to underline that it is our objective to build a partnership of equals. The green hydrogen projects will support both European climate goals and North Africa climate and socio-economic development needs. The South H2 corridor, which will run, as all of you know, from North Africa via Italy to Germany and Austria, has been recognized as a project of mutual interest under the TNE framework. Its development is a shared priority pursued in close partnership with Algeria, Tunisia, and the European Union. We will make sure that the project creates tangible value added on both sides of the Mediterranean. Our new hydrogen projects in the MENA region, Middle East and North Africa, will also integrate sustainable water management solutions, and we will focus on energy and water efficiency to avoid negative impacts on communities and other sectors, in particular agriculture. Hydrogen will be a key area of our economic cooperation. It offers opportunities for new value chains, from electrolyzers to green ammonia. Hydrogen can be, as you know, I'm preaching in the wrong church, hydrogen can be a booster of our strategic partnership. First, demand and investment from Europe and the Gulf countries will help create and expand markets. MENA or MENA partners can become competitive suppliers of hydrogen even on a global scale, and hydrogen can boost an intra-regional MENA cooperation and integration in a broader sense. It is very important to note that our approach is about local value chains and employment, about supply which also meets domestic demands, and about our shared prosperity and long-term cooperation. It is an approach that is mutually beneficial and the result of truly joint ownership. Dear ladies and gentlemen, as a Commissioner for the Mediterranean, my mandate is not only diplomatic but also economic. It is to strengthen the European Union relations with the countries of the Middle East, North Africa, and the Gulf. Although Gulf geographically is not Mediterranean, but we somehow consider it very connected and linked to the Mediterranean. In a world of profound geostrategic and economic uncertainties, closer cooperation among partners is not just a choice, it is the way forward. This is exactly why President von der Leyen decided to establish a new portfolio on the Mediterranean to show that southern neighborhood is very important. And it's not only a new portfolio, but it's also a new Directorate General, which is called DG MENA, which is first entry point for everything connected to Middle East, North Africa, and Gulf. This is why, of course, there are ties which we share for centuries, rooted in history and enriched by the diversity of our peoples. This is why we have shaped the Pact for the Mediterranean together. So this pact will be adopted by the College of Commissioners on the 16th of October. And it has been done in spirit of joint ownership and co-creation. And as I said, it's not just another strategy. It is a partnership of equals. So we call it pact because we consider it to be a pact, not only document. Of course, our ambition is clear. We are paving the way towards a shared space of prosperity, peace, and stability. And our approach with the pact is pragmatic. We all want tangible results in key areas that have a positive impact for citizens, for economies, and for societies. And renewable energy is one of these areas. So our reinforced cooperation in this area tackles a shared challenge. First, we need to step up energy security. We need to advance decarbonization, and we need to increase our European competitiveness, not only European, also the competitiveness of the region. The MENA region holds one of the world's best solar and wind resources to achieve this, and this opportunity we must seize. The Pact for the Mediterranean will include Trans-Mediterranean Energy and Clean Tech Cooperation Initiative, so-called TMED. TMED will be a centerpiece of the economic cooperation with our partners in North Africa and the Middle East. And TMED is a flagship initiative and covers a lot of win-win-win, maybe, scenario of our new level of cooperation for both sides. So this initiative will help provide investment opportunities, boost renewable energies, and create, very important, create quality jobs in the region. Just want to add something, just to understand. I'm in charge of Mediterranean, but also in charge of demography. For us, it is very important knowing that Europe is shrinking, knowing that that part of the world is booming, and we are sure that by doing this, we are also addressing root causes of migration by giving opportunities to these young people to have jobs there. So this is very important. This is the moment to invite all of you, to invite European companies to come and invest in that part of the world. By doing this, we are doing much more than only hydrogen, much more than only renewables. We are developing these countries. We are helping people of these countries. We are decarbonizing the region, because if we have standards here in Spain, Italy, Greece, and countries along Mediterranean on the north side, and we have standards and they don't have there, so the Mediterranean area will stay polluted. So we don't want to have Mediterranean area being polluted. We want it to be decarbonized. We want it to use all the resources which exist there and which are not used at its best potential. I have to be open and honest to you. You know that we produce 1 megawatt hour electricity here at 60 euros in Europe, and the same goes on there around 30 euros. So this is also a benefit for both, for Europe and for them. At the same time, of course, we need interconnectors, and this is something which you know better than me. But this is how we think and how we somehow upgrade our new philosophy around the Mediterranean. This is to understand this, and I'll try to explain only the pillars of TMED. So this Trans-Mediterranean Clean Energy Initiative will be implemented through 5 strands. First, investment platform, which will coordinate, this is also very important, how to coordinate these projects, to coordinate projects into a pipeline of ready-to-go projects. And it will bring together project developers, financial institutions, including development banks, and private sector, because private sector is also important here. Then it is, second pillar is regulatory accelerator. We need to break regulatory barriers across borders, but there are also barriers within the Union itself, which we are trying to break by simplification now with different omnibus, but barriers exist also there to attract private investments at a large scale. TMAD will also improve the integration of electricity grids. It could also serve as a vehicle of convergence towards a cross-border regional energy market. And the fourth pillar, we will also foster clean tech industry collaborations that align with existing EU initiatives. We want to expand the investments opportunities in clean technology manufacturing in North Africa. And the last but not least, the fifth, we will strengthen cutting-edge skills and vocational training. We need that for the new quality jobs, as I already said. Why this is important? Because there is a lot of young people who are so-called needs, not in education, not in employment, NEET. So we want to help these young people. And TMAD will demonstrate that what is good for the environment is also beneficial for people and also for business. Just to conclude and to understand how we are trying to develop this new philosophy, there are three pillars of our new pact. The first one is people. People at the center. For us, it is very important. It's about skills, vocational training, helping youngsters, but not only young people, also women, gender issues also there. Second one is about how to enhance economies, how to attract European companies to go there and vice versa, if possible. And the third pillar is about security, prosperity, and migration. It is also very important. This is why we have Gulf countries with us in this portfolio, because without having Gulf included, as you know, it will be not easy to solve the situation in the Middle East. This is not political speech, but just to understand that we need Gulf countries to be on board with us, because we can't do all these issues alone. So we need everybody on board, also international organizations, also United States of America, just to understand that we need everybody on board. And this is how we look at this. But of course, European Union is the biggest payer. At the same time, we would like to be players, not only payers in that region. Just to understand, you also know that I'm in charge of signing strategic partnership agreements with different countries. We already have 3, one with Egypt, one with Tunisia, one with Jordan, which I signed myself at the beginning of this year. Now we are working on deepening partnership with Morocco. So I'm visiting these countries, talking to people, not only to governments, but also to civil society, to think tanks, to academia, and so on and so on. So this is totally different approach to southern neighborhood, and we think that there is a lot of benefit for both of us, for them and for European Union. So this is why we are working on this, and this is why this new Mediterranean portfolio has been established. People thought at the beginning everything is about tourism, France, Spain, Italy. It's not about that. It's about investment, it's about economy, and it's about northern part of Africa, Middle East, and Gulf. Just to conclude, our clean tech initiatives help create, as I said, quality jobs for young people, support meeting climate goals by reducing dependency on the fossil fuels. To be open, we want to get rid of fossil fuels from Russia. And this is why we also build new relations, because we want to get rid of these fossil fuels from that part of the world, openly, and just building on renewables, especially on hydrogen. And we want to ensure, as I said, sustainable economic development and stability in the region, because if economy works, then stability will come. And so this is what we are trying to do. And hydrogen, because this is Hydrogen Week, will play a vital role in this strategy. So dear ladies and gentlemen, dear experts, I want to thank you for listening to me. I wish you to have a fruitful exchange this week. And we can also have some takeaways from the conclusions of your weeks, to implement this in our regulations and our rules and our agreements. Thank you so much, and all the best.
Hvala lepa. Hvala. Thanks very much. Hvala lepa. And this shows it's about investments in the economy, but also in the future of life chances in the Mediterranean and beyond. And who can do that better than one of the superstars of our sector, the biggest electrolyzer company in the world. And we have the CEO here. We have Werner Ponikwar. He will conclude and wrap up this morning's session. And Werner, you are here, you have the stage, and after that we all meet at the coffee bar. But first we listen to our superstar, Werner.
Well, first of all, I'm not sure whether I'm here really a superstar, but you know, I'm certainly glad to be here. It's a pleasure actually to be here again at the European Hydrogen Week, and it's also important for me to really hear from the different stakeholders that were just speaking already how much ambition and commitment we do have in our industry. But as well as that, we should also ask the harder question, which is really how to deliver. And I think when we look, and I think Giorgio has already mentioned that, if you look back to what Draghi was actually recommending a year ago, then we are quickly seeing that actually Draghi was really giving Europe a wake-up call, right? He reminded us really that Europe maybe has the tools to lead, but we are really risking also to fall behind. Frankly speaking, yesterday, Sopna was asking me, why are you looking so grumpy? And I told her, I'm not, but actually, if you look at actually where we are in Europe in terms of really delivering, actually, a little bit of grumpiness is actually something that is probably is justifiable. You know, I think that actually, if you look at basically then also what Draghi was just recently doing and taking stock also on where we are standing against his very own report, he was actually saying that Europe's growth model is actually losing ground, and that inaction poses a threat not only to our competitiveness, but also to our sovereignty. And Europe is, in my perspective, losing industrial ground, in particular also in clean tech in the meantime. And unless we scale really fast now, we risk really to lose both climate goals as well as competitive edge at once. And therefore, we must really ask ourselves, honest and without excuses, what has changed? What have we delivered? And what the heck is holding us back? And I think here Draghi's message was also pretty clear. Europe must stretch hard to avoid falling behind. And I think this is true. But let me be clear here as well. Europe can still win also this race. And what gives me confidence are three things. One is our technological leadership, not only in electrolysis, but also in other clean techs. The industrial projects that are already on the way, and we have heard a number of examples already today, and also the pragmatic choices that we still have in our hands here in Europe. Well, let me quickly explain what I mean with that. Europe is strong in innovation. We are leaders in clean tech technologies like electrolysis, offshore wind, and also low carbon fuels. But let's be honest again, Draghi's warning remained. We struggle to turn our ideas into large-scale industrial realities. And yes, we have seen progress with initiatives like the LCH Delegated Act or the third European Hydrogen Bank auction. But leadership is not defined by policy papers. It is proven through delivery. And yet our normally strong home base is rather weak. Global competition is advancing rapidly. Meanwhile, while our European market, once the bedrock of engineering success, is moving only slowly. For scaling technology, that is certainly a very dangerous imbalance. We also know that industries across Europe face heavy burdens, be it security concerns, tight budgets, and social pressures. But the best protection was always and will always be to invest in the future. And yes, this will come at a cost. But not every lever requires billions. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Take the RFMBO rules. The stringent rules on additionality, spatial and also timely correlation are extremely difficult to fulfill for, in particular, large-scale projects. And we need large-scale projects because that's the only way to really reach competitive hydrogen costs. And likewise, these rules are artificially increasing the production costs of renewable hydrogen. Simplifying these rules or postponing them would immediately unlock the full potential of hydrogen produced in the European Union as well. And take RED III as another example. The EU has delivered, but member states are dragging their feet. And I don't care whether it is 42% of renewable energy in 2030 or a lower or higher figure. What matters is visibility and clear rules and also mandates, so industry knows what to plan for. So while we hold many cards still in our hands, it seems like others are playing. The world is moving, and it's moving in some areas pretty fast. The last year, large-scale projects were really breaking ground, even in gigawatt scale, but most of them, unfortunately, outside of Europe. And at the same time, projects that were selected by the European Hydrogen Bank were cancelled, most of them because of uncertainties. So the pace is really a little bit uneven. While Europe is debating, others are implementing and accelerating. Take, for example, China, and we heard that example already earlier. China is really scaling with determination. More than 50% of the renewable hydrogen capacity that has passed FID globally sits in China. And China shows us that very clearly, that with direct orders and with mandates, you can create speed and clarity, and you can build an infrastructure very quickly. And Europe, by comparison, has just reached 4 gigawatts post-FID in terms of electrolyzer capacity, and that's less than 15% of the global capacity, with many of the electrolyzer projects still being at very small size, which is certainly not helping the cost competitiveness. But still, Europe remains, and I think this is also important to understand, Europe is the intellectual and innovation hub of electrolysis. It holds about half of the global know-how. But uncertainty and also high complexity of rules and regulations are slowing down deployment in Europe. And without change, we will certainly also lose feedback loop of scale, of learning, and also of improvements that will turn leadership into market share. So we all want clean hydrogen at competitive prices, but waiting until scale is built elsewhere will only deepen our dependency. Recent studies just showed that if we target the right cost levers here in Europe, we can make European supply of renewable hydrogen competitive and even on a global level. So what are we waiting for? And I think the question is really urgent. Will Europe simply import clean fuels and sending billions of euros abroad and remain dependent? Or will we also create value here, improving our own energy competitiveness and even exporting the technologies that make them? At thyssenkrupp nucera, we are already delivering on that. We are delivering flagship projects in Europe, for example, in the Netherlands and in Sweden, but also abroad, for example, in Saudi Arabia. In total, more than 3 gigawatts of electrolyzer capacity as we speak. And we are continuously also improving on levelized cost of hydrogen. So we are doing our homework. We are contributing our little bit of making hydrogen more competitive. We do that by relentless standardization and also automation. We're doing that by targeted innovation and also value-based systems design. And then finally also by developing sector-specific products and also technologies, which is including also SOEC and also next generation high-pressure electrolysis. And these are not merely plans for tomorrow, there are deliveries in motion, with gigawatts of electrolyzers already underway. So we are providing electrolyzers that can Europe also use in terms of building up scale. And it can be also built faster than many of us maybe believe. So it's not so much a question of technological readiness level, because the technologies are there, they're existing, and they're, frankly speaking, rather simple. We are talking about a very straightforward conversion of energy into an energy carrier in one step. And it's more a question that Europe as a whole must make choices, pragmatically and not dogmatically. And I think that electrolysis must be part of their choices, because it can really become the backbone of sovereignty. And it is, of course, a bridge between renewable electrons and also the decarbonized economy. But we must be pragmatic in how we want to build up that infrastructure. And the RED III quota should actually be a springboard and not a stumbling block. No project is fully RFNBO compliant right from day one, and that is, in my view, not a failure, but a chance to accelerate. What we need from Brussels, I believe, is very clear: a regulatory framework that is enabling and not hindering, mechanisms to support offtake, and an infrastructure to connect demand with supply very cost efficiently. This is how Europe can act fast and lead also for the long term. And for the sake of timing, and I don't want to keep you away from lunch for too longer, let me close very quickly now, just reminding all of us that the responsibility that rests with us all here in this room, this at the conference, policymakers as well as industry leaders, but also investors. If we do not act, then no one else will really act. And if we act together, Europe still can lead. So it's our responsibilities and it's our choices. And with that, I would like to say thank you once again to having me here today. And even though this was a little bit more grumpy than maybe all the speeches before, I think it hopefully is also a little bit of a wake-up call to really we need to do exactly that, fast track our future. Thank you very much.